that bridge is an acronym for belonging, representation, inclusion, diversity. The G is the gap in all of those things, and then the E is equity. And our mission is really about moving the narrative of DE&I away from philosophy to operationalizing inclusion as a business practice. So our North Star is that. Our North Star is not necessarily marketing per se, because we believe that inclusion needs to cross the entire organization, marketing included, but everywhere from organizational practices all the way to advocacy. And so the way that we come at it is that we look at the business practices. Our goal is really about operationalizing inclusion, as I said, as a business practice, not a philosophy anymore.
I absolutely love it that when they first created diversity, inclusivity, and equity, they didn't realize that it actually spells die. And it looks really bad, because when you look at African countries that implemented these ESG policies, they end up with famines, without being able to power their electricity, with other bad stuff, with rising crime rates, so on and so forth. They realize, okay, well, maybe DIE isn't a good acronym, so now they're using DEI. Elon Musk said DIE in front of Don Lemon, and Don Lemon immediately corrected him. It's like, I'm not sure you know that it's spelled DEI, or... No, like for years, it was diversity, inclusivity, and equity. But now they're realizing, okay, well, maybe we should say bridge, right? Because it's all about belonging and wholesomeness. We saw it in the gaming world, right? It's all about inclusivity until they gain power, and then they talk about purges and shit. But basically what's happening is that the ESG funding, if you listen to what the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, was saying, he wants to instill behaviors into people, right? So by holding money on top of them, and by saying, hey, if you behave the correct way, we're going to give you this cash, then businesses who are interested in making money, they will adjust. They will start doing what BlackRock wants them to do, right? So they will start promoting the message. And we saw that with Gillette, right? Like when you have Gillette going, it's like, oh, boys will be boys. And now it's not about selling a good razor. It's about lecturing you about how to be a man and getting you invested into learning about feminism. And you also saw that with Bud Light. The purpose of this is to create an ideology that is so divisive among society, that gets men against women, minorities against non-minorities. Like everyone needs to start doing these struggle sessions so that they don't look up and you get another Occupy Wall Street movement, right? Like all of these ideologies, their main purpose is to prevent populism, is to prevent people realizing, hold on a little bit, I'm white, you're black, but at the end of the day, we're still being oppressed by the 1%, right? So they want you to avoid doing that. They want you to talk about frivolous nonsense rather than talk about the fact that U.S. politicians are making a killing on the stock market. Interesting how that is, right? So they are using this ideology in order to allow the rich to maintain power. And notice how this ideology is also adopted by the rich people. Like if it was genuinely an ideology to help, that you wouldn't have like rich people flying with private jets and taking yachts. Like they would actually lead by example. And of course you wouldn't have rich people like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry going around and complain about how oppressed they are when they're literally royalty and they don't have to pay taxes. So by doing this ESG stuff, by trying to force companies to instill behaviors, they realize that it's not working. And it's not working for two reasons. Number one, many companies pretend to be woke, but in reality, they're not. So they pretend that they're lowering emissions, but in reality, they're not. Like, for instance, tobacco companies can have a higher ESG score than Elon Musk's electric car companies. But the second thing, it's still not working. Like the public is still upset, and they saw this with Gamergate 2.0. Like if you notice, the freak out is massive. Like all of a sudden you get the ADL involved and the academia and the Department of Homeland Security, simply because a couple of gamers are fed up with the fact that the women in their video games have man jaws and the body type A, body type B is being pushed. Right, so all of a sudden the government's like, holy shit, like we still didn't manage to. Oh. So they're basically saying now that, okay, well, we can't actually do this way, right? We even if we try to persuade corporations to push the message is not being received. So they're going to stop trying to incentivize you to accept the message, and instead they're going to force the message upon you. So how will they do it? Well, they're going to use a Chinese system, right? Like they want now banks to apply ESG on a personal level. So just as much as information is used to create a picture of who you are and how your personal actions influence the world around you, buying a gun, alcohol, or even clothing will affect your overall ESG score. Not only will your purchases matter, but who you purchase from and how they do business, right? So up until now, the mentality was that if you're a company that doesn't have a high ESG score, you're not sustainable. So the idea was like the new generation that's coming, right? Like the young generation, they're like Greta Thunberg, right? Like they're very oriented for social justice. They're oriented towards protecting the environment. They have all of these things. And if you're a company that doesn't align with these values, when this generation, when the Zoomers grow up and when they have their own money, they will just not buy from you. So you're not a sustainable company. And that was the mentality that they were pushing, right? But now they're pushing a different mentality. Now they're actually saying, no, you know what? Like you as a citizen, right? You're an atomized individual. Like forget what you're seeing and what you're hearing on the world. Everyone behaves this way. If you don't behave this way, we're going to lower your ESG score, right? Because you're a danger to the public. It's at this point, it is literal fascism. Like it is the very definition of nothing against BlackRock, everything within BlackRock, It's literally that. Like there is no more privacy that you can have. There is nothing you can do that would be outside of scrutiny. The way you present your hobbies, what you eat, what like literally every aspect of your life that requires a transaction is going to be monitored. So the question is like, how many banks are on board with this? I genuinely don't know, but the fact that it's not zero is incredibly concerning. Will there be laws to prevent this? Very unlikely. Is this thing happening in other parts of the world? Yes, it's happening in China. So the system is not impossible. Obviously, there will be people that will fight against the system. And I'm not talking here about protests and activism. I'm talking about simply the fact, okay, well, we can just barter then. Like if I'm using my credit card and by buying stuff, is going to be problematic. Well, I can just barter for goods then. I can obtain stuff by trading some alcohol, and in exchange I get some tobacco, and with the tobacco I buy something else. This is what's going to happen. People, and this is why it's so important that people don't give up cash. Like a cashless society is going to lead to tyranny. They can't trace cash. They don't know what you're doing with cash. They can't operate their bridge things. They do not have the ability to track cash as well as they can track credit. So this is why it's important to resist. And I did see a lot of countries in Europe waking up to this. Britain, for instance, Sweden as well. Like Sweden was almost a cashless society a couple of years ago, and now they're like, well, hold on a little bit. No, this is ridiculous. We're not going to do it. Britain as well, except for London. London is still a little bit crazy. Greece especially, like Greece, they're not trusting the banks at all. Like a Greek person, the moment they got their money, they automatically withdraw it. And I do too. Like the moment that I get my paycheck, the next day I go and I withdraw everything. I do not like to keep money in the bank. In fact, when I went to pay for the mortgage, and I went to the banks in order to do the down payment, and I came with the stacks of cash, like they were looking at me like I'm some person coming out of the Congo. And it's like, what's the problem? It's like, well, why are you paying in cash? And I'm like, well, why not? Do a bank transfer. And it's like, what do I get if I do a bank? So what do I get if I keep the money in the bank? Do I get the percentage? Do I get... They didn't have an answer. Well, if you don't have an answer, then why would I keep it in the bank? What service are you offering? Anyway, right. Concerning. I think we're going to be talking about this in the future more rather than less. And I'll see what you guys have to say in the comment section. Take care.